Hello all. So we've ended up in a weird place. Our options for US president now appear to be Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. From most perspectives, this is pretty horrific, but it makes things interesting in a very new way. In this bizarro world, the Libertarian Party actually has a real chance. The Libertarian Party is the extreme anti-government party, and in 2012 they picked up just 1% of the vote. In the interest of full disclosure, I'll point out that one of those votes was mine. I've supported the Libertarian Party for years, not because I'm a particularly doctrinaire libertarian, but because I feel they're the only party that has anything serious to say about our military-industrial complex, the drug war, the ever-growing power of Washington, D.C., and the dangers of Wall Street, the most out-of-control department of the U.S. government. Trump or Clinton will end up as president, but I think we have a real duty as Americans to make sure that whoever wins has as small a popular mandate as possible. To make that happen, we need to pay more attention to the third-party options. So that's what we'll do today. Last month, John Stossel, one of Fox News' House Libertarians, broadcast a libertarian debate. Let's take a look.
We've heard so much from the Republicans and Democrats. Now it's time to hear from the Libertarians, the three top polling presidential candidates. Debate here tonight in our two-part Libertarian Presidential Forum.
First off, this debate was tremendously refreshing. We kept hearing things like this.
We've spent $1 trillion on a no-win war on drugs. One of Nixon's aides just came out recently and said that the war on drugs was meant to crack down on hippies and black people. It's ridiculous. We've got to stop this. This is where we get the violence on the border. If you guys want to have a more secure border, then you've got to end the war on drugs. We will be a safer, freer nation.
And this.
But I would like to say about letting Muslims in. What are we trying to protect ourselves from? Is it not ourselves? Did we not create terrorism by interfering in the affairs of foreign nations?
And this.
I would be proposing a balanced budget to Congress, which would be a 20% reduction in federal spending. And to do that, you've got to include Medicaid, Medicare, military spending.
There were a lot of simple truths laid out that we simply won't hear in the major party debates. So who are these guys? First off, we've got Austin Petersen, a 35-year-old who hasn't done much with his life other than put together a solid social media presence. In that sense, he's a lot like Donald Trump. I don't much like him.
I learned about economic liberty when my parents sent me out into the fields to plant chrysanthemums and sell them to the people of my small town. I learned about personal liberty from those who taught me about the Golden Rule. I believe that people are inherently good and that they can be trusted with freedom, and that freedom should be as expansive as possible. The role of government is to protect our liberty, not our security. That's what the Second Amendment is for.
It's like Ted Cruz walked into this debate. Petersen is pro-life, smugly polished, and is the only candidate who felt the need to drag the Bible into the debate. He says some things I agree with, but he mostly leaves a bad taste in my mouth. As the Libertarian Party gets more serious, I guess more polished politicians are inevitable. But if Austin Petersen is the result, I'm certainly not interested. Next, we've got John McAfee, a tech millionaire and the complete opposite of polished and serious. My understanding is that he's no longer associated with it, but you may know him as the founder of the most annoying antivirus software on the planet. He's almost as unsuitable for the office of president as Donald Trump. He says a lot of the right stuff, but he also trotted out the most inexplicable talking point of the evening.
What would I do about ISIS? ISIS is a problem of intelligence gathering more than anything else. I mean, we have the capacity. Certainly, is anybody doing terrorist acts inside of China? Or inside of Russia? No, it just doesn't happen. They are so far ahead of us from a cybersecurity standpoint, meaning intelligence gathering in the modern age. We should know well in advance before every terrorist attack on the planet, and yet we do not. We do not. Or if we do, we're not telling anybody. It's one of the greatest tragedies. We need new training. We need to make ourselves up to date. We are 20 years behind the Chinese and the Russians.
Is this guy pro-NSA? In a libertarian debate? McAfee is fun to watch, but shouldn't be taken seriously. Though I've got to say, his response to his DUI arrest is maybe the coolest thing I've ever seen a politician say.
And DUI in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, the DUI. That was the most foolish and stupid thing I've ever done. I own up to it. All right.
Which brings us to Gary Johnson. He's the likely nominee, and he's an awesome guy. Johnson built a large business from scratch, and he was a tremendously successful governor of New Mexico. He's got relevant experience, he clearly thinks deeply about the issues, and is more interested in solutions than libertarian orthodoxy. He's my guy for sure. There's just one problem. He's not much of a public speaker.
Suppose none of you exists. You have a choice between voting for Trump or Clinton. Who?
I'd choose to remain non-existent. I don't vote for people that I don't believe in.
Mr. McAfee, lesser of evils?
You're asking me to choose between a case of the measles and a bladder infection. I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Governor Johnson?
Look, I would vote for the Libertarian candidate if none of us were up here. I would vote for a third-party candidate if none of us were up here. My first vote for a Libertarian candidate was Bergland against Reagan, his second term. He blew the lid off of spending.
Seriously, how do you whiff on a question that simple? Gary Johnson is also not much of a debater. This is a serious problem for a guy whose main goal at this point is to get on a debate stage with Clinton and Trump. It's hard to imagine him doing a good job of it. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. Trump and Clinton are unlikely to let him debate. In a race with Republican light and a charismatic lunatic, Gary Johnson is the obvious choice. He's very likely to get the Libertarian nomination in the convention in Orlando at the end of this month, and that's a good thing. I was pleased to see how willing these guys were to compromise on certain libertarian principles. None of them was willing to commit to abolishing the Environmental Protection Agency, for example, which was nice.
I think that government exists to protect us against individuals, groups, corporations that would do us harm. And there are polluters out there. In New Mexico, there was a mine that was polluting a river in northern New Mexico. It had been allowed to pollute for decades. If it weren't for federal EPA shutting them down, they would still be polluting that river. I put this in the context of protecting us against harm.
It's worth pointing out, though, that the moderator's questions weren't exactly hard-hitting. Issues like the war on drugs and immigration, where libertarians are very attractive, were the main focus. Nobody brought up the Fed or the gold standard, and a call for abolition of the Food and Drug Administration was ignored. But this doesn't matter. None of these guys are going to win. The point here is that the Libertarians are worth covering as a legitimate alternative to the corpse of the Republican Party. In the coming weeks, I hope to provide a similar introduction to the Green Party candidates, the alternative to Hillary. We've got to give these people a platform. If we don't, we tell the Republicans and Democrats that the choices they've given us are okay, and that is not acceptable. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please click on the Patreon link here to find out how.